joining us. I'm Renee Van Nett, Duluth City Council President. We are here tonight as part of Mayor Larson's 5th State of the City address. Traditionally, the City Council President sends a message to the community, and I'm here to do that this evening. Bonjour, mashkiki makwa ikwe nindejnikas, mikizi dotem, obashing minawa onegamin sing nindunji. Hello, I'm Renee Van Nett. I'm the 2021 Duluth City Council President. I wanted to start out with thanking my colleagues and friends. Thank you, Mayor Larson, city staff, for hard working and making it possible for me to be here, and the work of leaving Duluth a better place than you found it. I'd like to thank at-large Councilor, Council Vice President Eric Forsman, at-large Councilor Zach Filipovich, at-large Councilor Derek Medved, at-large Councilor Therese Tominik, 1st District Councilor Gary Anderson, 2nd District Councilor Joel Cypress, 3rd District Councilor Roz Randor, 5th District Councilor Janet Kennedy. In my minutes with you, I would like to share a collective message that comes directly from all councilors. We will talk about the pandemic, recovery, nuts and bolts of our work, and moving forward. And then finally, our gratitude to you. And what does the City Council do and who we are? As a City Council, it's a group of duly elected officials who serve as a legislative body to a city. Council members are tasked with representing the interests of constituents. In addition to proposing and passing, ratifying laws and ordinances, City Council manages budgets and investigates city agencies when necessary. When I became council president, I asked many people their perspective on what this work should look like. I got many amazing answers that have guided my process. Some answers were be true to who you are and be kind. Also, be the kind of leader you would like to see. I followed the shoes of recent past President Anderson, and he followed the shoes of council presidents before him. The changes respect the continuity of community and our commitment to the heart of our community. In our jobs as councilors, we are closest to the people. In the Ojibwe culture, the elders have taught that an effective leader is one who sits within their community, works and participates with their community to best address the needs and to never lose touch of what community needs. I am council president who happens to be Indigenous. The teachings run strong and deep when it comes to being a visitor of someone else's home, Mother Earth. The teachings that I am taught is that you leave the place in a better condition than when you found it. Make sure that you understand your responsibility and that you take care of the animate and inanimate entities, including air, water, land, sky, and all living beings. We're talking about pandemic recovery. We're working together to get through COVID-19 pandemic through policymaking, such as a citywide mask ordinance that would assist in slow spread of the virus. We honored the state of Minnesota governor's safety standards on COVID recovery. We have committed to supporting community members who are struggling during this time. We all sat out of many family gatherings, shopping and being with close friends to remain healthy. We recognize your sacrifice and commitment, and we thank you for that. The city has received a special allocation of funds to address the current COVID-19 pandemic in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This funding was approved through the passing of the COVID-19 Relief and Economic Security, the CARES Act. The purpose of additional funds is to provide communities the ability to quickly respond to community needs in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. HUD has allocated CARES Act funding in multiple rounds, CV1, CV2, and CV3 in April and May of 2020. The city gathered community input regarding urgent needs as community due to COVID-19. CV1 funds were awarded and approved by City Council in July 2020. The city went through 2 different rounds of CARES Act funding, allocated federal dollars to local organizations serving to moderate income people. Funds were used to support hunger programs, support homeless shelters, provide housing for those with COVID symptoms and positive COVID cases, among other essential services. The city asked for additional community input regarding ongoing and current needs in the community due to COVID-19. We will continue to allocate the $60 million from the Federal Economic Rescue Plan. The nuts and bolts of our work. Council is grateful and very humbled at the same time. We believe in leaving the city better than when we found it. We are committed to civility and a positive attitude towards our collective work in areas of public safety, public spaces, transportation infrastructure, community centers, workforce development, jobs through specific industry. We also concentrate on our efforts on housing, entrepreneurship, streets, ADA compliance for curb cuts, on sidewalks, climate justice, city commissions, tackling homelessness, supporting tourism, business development, growth. One example is the 1200 Fund. Street improvement projects, housing development projects, while at the same time honoring project labor agreements, and much, much more. Looking forward, what you can expect is that we will be supporting COVID-19 recovery measures in all aspects that come forward before us. We are currently working towards returning to work at City Hall, opening our public and as safely as possible, returning our children back to school safely, and helping you live the lives of your choosing. You can also expect that City Council will continue to work on nuts and bolts items that I had mentioned with civility in our mind and in our hearts. As a council, we come from different ways of beings, and our lenses will reflect who we are, but it also reflects who you are as a community. In conclusion, I've talked about what City Council does, our path to recovery, nuts and bolts policy work, adjustments, and moving forward. Our final message is one of gratitude. The community we serve, we need you. We need your voices collectively. We need you to communicate with us and let us know how to best communicate with you. Call us, email us, come to council meetings and address us. All of this work is for you. We want to help you live the lives that you want, not the lives that we think you want. Help us do this together. Miigwech. Now it is my pleasure to introduce two local artists from our community who will be sharing spoken word with us tonight. And they are Quay Perry and Ms. Janetta Hall.
We need to kill a mockingbird. Not literally, but we need to see the wrong to know it's wrong. Some kids need that culture shock. I needed that moment of seeing my class react with such awe at a word I've heard yelled at me by homegoing traffic. To one of these kids, that would cause static, but I want to own my day because that's my life. But these kids go and tell everyone what happened. They spread the word, not because they were told to, but because they are in awe and need to express their surprise. That's what we need. You don't have to isolate my people. We do not need African-American classes. We need African-American history taught in American history because Africa did not come to America and there was no fair trade with the Europeans. So the least you can do is teach us about the mistakes made, teach those after you. We don't need a Black history book section. We need Black books in the curriculum. And not because we need to show that Black people can be authors, because there's Black authors who have told stories worth learning from. We don't need censorship to make kids think life is all bleak and blurred. We need the cold, hard truth. So we don't make another cold, hard reality because some people want to hide a cold, hard history. And they've been locked in their lives, but open your eyes and the truth will set you free. Duluth is quite unique. Rolling hills, lakes as far as the eyes can see, many lives you can eat. Children run through the streets chasing age that will come with time. They don't need filters on the real world. They need to read between the lines. Nobody really knows the cost. The cost of equality. Is it an arm and a leg? Or is it an eye for an eye?
Let me start off by saying I'm not religious, but some things in religion just make sense. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Paint a picture, draw the sun, create a mixture, draw our sons. Forgive me if I have wronged. I am trying to stay strong. We're stronger together rather than being alone. Our founding fathers didn't know that one day our emotions will explode with hate, yet we still create. Our love for recreation is stronger than our hate we want to reciprocate. Reciprocation, retaliation, it's all the same things done by different nations. Nations so divided that a highway can't even tie us together. Traffic was noisy, but it wasn't the N-O-I-S-Y that was bothering me. It was 1,000 men and women on their hands and knees begging to be released. Release me in a society that no longer accepts me. Free and equal, that just sounds deceitful. I just want better for all my people. The same people that were always created equal. Be the light that gives your people joy. Understand that money doesn't make all their problems go away. Asking for help has always been the better way. Take a minute to think before you speak so that I don't have to be bleak. Be honest with them and they will see you as truth. But for now, I will heal them and mend them. I will make them whole and bless them with abundance of peace and security. Jeremiah 33:6.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor Larson.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching tonight's State of the City Address. Chi-miigwech to Council President Renee Van Nett for your beautiful words and introduction, your strong, courageous leadership in this time of pandemic. April is National Poetry Month, and I was thrilled that we had spoken word tonight as part of our presentation, and so thank you to that team. Thanks also to the city team, to Kate Van Dale, to Phil Jentz, Bronwyn Bauer, Alicia Kozlowski, who have put in tremendous effort to make this event happen and work hard every single day on behalf of this team. To WDIO, who are helping us broadcast to you safely tonight. I thank my friend and colleague and comrade, Eric Peterson, who helps me articulate vision for this speech every single year. And my brother at work, CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, Noah Shuckman, who brilliantly helps execute this vision. Lastly, before I begin, I want to thank my family who is here tonight. My husband, Doug Zahn, who is extraordinary. Our son, Eli, is at a sports tryout tonight. One sport finished last week, another one starts tonight. Our son, Gabe, is here, home for spring break, and we'd love having you home, honey. And our family favorite, +1, Abby Amundsen, is with us as well. And having this time with all of you as family has meant really the world to me this past year. So thank you for that. So I start tonight by acknowledging that Anishinaabe peoples and other tribal nations have inhabited this land for centuries. As mayor, I am committed to understanding and telling the story of this land and people in a good way, with greater accuracy in accounting and with a deeper humility. I am committed to a thorough discernment and deliberative land acknowledgement as part of my administration moving forward. So it's spring, after a really hard winter, after a long year. The hurt and loss we've experienced this past year weigh heavy on many of us. The fact that I'm delivering this speech remotely speaks to the challenging times that we're in. But there's something else going on as well: hopefulness, a sense of community and connection forged through shared adversity. It's that feeling and relationship that comes when you've shared a tough time with others. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to spend a virtual hour with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, along with 10 other mayors across the country. It turns out the Dalai Lama has a very long history of working with mayors. And he talked about two things that deeply moved me. The first was no mud, no lotus. The lotus flower is a symbol of enlightenment and rebirth. It sinks its roots deep into the mud to grow. And even in the dirtiest water, the lotus produces beautiful flowers. The Dalai Lama also called on us to see ourselves as part of a shared humanity. And I found this profoundly hopeful, particularly in these trying times, because in this mud, in these dirty waters, we seek hope. And we find strength in seeing ourselves as part of a shared humanity, where rebirth and regeneration are possible. I call this resilience. For me, resilience isn't something that you can just pull off the shelf when you need it. It isn't a given. It's forged with purpose. It's built on truth, infused with empathy, and tempered through hardship. We find it in the relationships that make us stronger and carry us through together. Resilience is about intentionally choosing a path and a way of being together, building common ground based on truth, the foundation upon which we can build an equitable, sustainable future. Our resilience and gritty determination have been tested this past year. You have shared hundreds of stories with me, stories that are filled with fear and pain and sadness and frustration of not being able to see and hug grandchildren or loved ones. Parents trying to juggle their work on one screen while helping their child with remote school on another. Small business owners who stayed awake nights truly tormented with trying to save their businesses and protect their employees and customers. And the stories that really tore at me most were those of not being able to say goodbye to loved ones. In Duluth alone, COVID has taken the lives of 145 people. Every single one of them had a story to tell. They were a parent or a child, a grandma or grandpa, a cherished sibling, a dear friend. And each one of those leaves a gaping hole in our collective heart and in our lives and in the fabric of our community. So, no, we did not all suffer equally through this pandemic, but all of us have experienced pain. And what I've talked about so far is just the pandemic. But there was also the brutal death of George Floyd, mass protests, cynical lies perpetuated about our election, and an armed mob attacking our nation's capital. It was quite a year, and no wonder we're all emotionally exhausted. But there were also inspiring and even funny moments this past year. Hundreds of you chalked messages, beautiful messages of hope and encouragement on your sidewalks. You delivered meals to neighbors. When needs arose, you just responded. You generously donated to local food banks. You made masks and gave them out for free. You checked in on friends and neighbors. You turned your businesses over to making personal protective gear. We, as a community, we came up with new and creative ways to safely hold small gatherings and to stay in touch. I mean, who knew that we'd all become digital meeting experts, or that virtual happy hours or concerts and game nights would become a thing? I mean, a year ago, who knew really that this year's punchline would be, wait, I think you're still on mute. So Duluth, we not only got through this last year together, we got through it stronger, more resilient than ever. So let's take a moment to celebrate what we got done. I know it's hard to remember a pre-pandemic time. It's hard to remember much of anything from last year, actually. So here's just a few highlights. Superior Street is nearly complete. We have only a few spots left to finish, thank goodness. And thank you to everyone who sacrificed through this 3-year project. Construction is booming. This is Duluth's biggest construction year in generations, and you'll see road construction, boom cranes, and buildings going up across the city. We rebuilt 14.5 miles of Duluth streets. And after 3 successive Lake Superior storms, we have rebuilt that beautiful, incredible lake walk to last. We didn't accomplish any of these things alone. It took the focus and work of hundreds of people throughout the city and the faith, confidence, and support of thousands more. I'm deeply grateful to every one of you and want to say thank you. City government itself, we also got the job done this year. Presented with unprecedented challenges, we worked each new problem until we found the right solutions So here's just a few examples. We balanced a budget. When everything shut down in March, we faced staggering 35% unemployment and economic stagnation. With it, the collapse of our revenues. Confronted with this catastrophe by June, we had already estimated up to a $38 million crisis. So everyone pitched in. We stabilized our budget. Everyone made sacrifices. City employees made personal sacrifices to help the city's finances and minimize layoffs. The city leadership team, city council, and I all took pay cuts. We implemented a hiring freeze. We laid off seasonal and temporary employees. And with some help from the state and the federal government, we put together a sound budget for this year. And I am so proud of this whole team effort. We've weathered the initial budget storm, and last month's America Rescue Plan will bring over $60 million in desperately needed funds to begin building a resilient recovery. This past year, we helped small businesses. Our local small businesses faced unprecedented challenges. Many were unable to secure federal or state assistance. So through DETA and the 1200 Fund, we mobilized. And we redirected critical resources to meet needs. DETA provided $400,000 in small business support, and the 1200 Fund supported 137 local businesses with direct grants. We particularly focused on supporting women and BIPOC-owned businesses. We supported our local employers and workers in other ways as well. For example, our commitment to increase availability of affordable childcare. Last year, the 1200 Fund supported opening 2 new childcare centers with 45 spots. So the path to recovery has only started for many local small businesses. Please, please know that we have your back in the months ahead. We supported workers, too. With the emergency shutdown, thousands of Duluth workers lost their jobs literally overnight. Hundreds of calls began to pour into our Career Force Center, and as other Duluth city offices closed, they stayed open to handle the emergency. Staff juggled phones while trying to figure out how to protect their own health and assist and comfort a stream of shocked and fearful people who needed help. They connected people to food banks, helped fill out unemployment applications, and overcome barriers to employment. One of the biggest barriers was Duluth's digital divide. Workers and students who didn't own or struggled even to use a computer were now expected to do everything online. So to meet this need, Career Force reached out with LISC to local foundations and other community allies to create the Duluth Digital Inclusion Initiative. Since May, they've raised over $1 million. Distributed 6,800 computers, created 1,000 Wi-Fi hotspots. I'll be talking more about the digital divide later in the speech. Our Parks and Rec stepped up like never before. Last April, people needed an outlet, something, anything really to do. Indoor spaces were closed, most of the city's trails were unusable, and stir-crazy Duluthians literally overwhelmed the lake walk. So Parks and Rec got to work. We opened 10 miles of seasonally closed roads and paved trails for walkers, joggers, bikers, families. This initiative has been nationally recognized. Staff also developed self-guided family activities like the egg hunt and the joke trail. They delivered virtual tours of city parks. This winter, they provided free loaner sleds at multiple sites so sledding was available to everyone. And they launched the Snow Stompers, where volunteers committed to stomping 10 miles of trails after each significant snowfall. So when others were staying home to stay well, our city staff was hard at work to make sure you could safely get outside. And finally, regarding our previous year, our last year, I want to talk about our police department, and I'd like to take a little bit more time here. Because like other first responders who risked their lives for the rest of us, our police officers couldn't stay home. People were scared this last year, and pandemic tensions, social isolation made public safety work more important than ever. Our officers did their job well. Policing is always a challenging job, but it took an even higher emotional toll in this most challenging of years. One day, Duluth officers were visiting local kids' birthday parties, flashing lights and sirens, and enjoying a celebration. And then, George Floyd died while in Minneapolis police custody. And as Chief Tuscan has said, in one day, we went from heroes to zeros. Like the rest of us, Duluth's officers were shocked and angry. For millions of people, the pent-up frustration and rage from decades of racist and unaccountable policing erupted in mass uprisings across the country, including here in Duluth. That's real and raw. It's hard. But our responsibility is not to become hardened. And I want to share one story of resilience and hope. It points to how we can all choose to build a better future. A few days after George Floyd's death, 1,000 peaceful demonstrators gathered in Duluth to call for justice. Tensions ran high. Here in Duluth, Sergeant Tony Radloff faced a line of protesters who challenged him and his fellow officers to read aloud the names of those killed by police. Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown. The list goes on. Similar scenes were playing out across the country with examples of provocateurs inciting violence or looting fires. We didn't see that here in Duluth. And it wasn't because we're that much different or particularly better people. It could have happened here, but it didn't because we intentionally chose a different path. Sergeant took the list of names and read the names to the crowd. His good training and solid experience told him this was the right thing to do, but it was also just the right and decent human thing to do, to say aloud those who have died, to acknowledge the pain and suffering. By demanding those names be read aloud, by challenging our systems to be better, community members showed us all the raw power of showing up with courageous vulnerability. And by reading those names, by living up to the challenge, Sergeant Radloff took a step toward healing our community, a step toward building trust and resilience, truth and reconciliation, trauma and healing. While there's more to do, we start the healing by telling the truth and naming that trauma. That's how we move forward. So, let's look forward. We're all desperate for a return to normalcy. I mean, I know I am. I get it. And we're so close. So with vaccines coming, we can see something better over the edge. We just all need to hang on a little longer. Please, please continue wearing your masks and keeping safe to get all of us to the end of this. But going back to where we were at a year ago just isn't good enough. We need to define what a new normal will be, what a resilient and equitable recovery will look like. I laid out a vision for Duluth in my first year of office. I promised to build a more inclusive, collaborative, fair, and sustainable city for all neighbors across all neighborhoods. And this core vision still guides me. It will be our North Star pointing our path to recovery. We will build upon 3 core principles: equity, sustainability, and community. So let's look at each of those. Let's start with equity. First, equity, fairness, and justice have been our bedrock in everything we've done. Our comprehensive plan, the elevation of the Human Rights Office, staff training, and the creation of an equity action team ensure our commitment to equity across every single department at the City of Duluth. Our new city attorney, Rebecca St. George, is now collecting race data for the first time on all criminal cases referred to her office. And we will use this data to analyze our response for implicit or systemic racism. These are efforts we've already done or started, but now we need to build on and accelerate them. And here's 2 examples of where we're headed. The first is reimagining our police department, what I'm calling community policing 2.0. For 20 years, we've been a national leader in community policing. Every day is Community Policing Day in Duluth. And when the state passed police reforms in the wake of George Floyd, Duluth had already been doing all of them for years. Our department pioneered embedding civilian mental health workers. It's won national recognition and awards for work with Mending the Sacred Hoop, where the police invite community members to review police reports and policies and help revise them to make them work better for the community. Recently, the Duluth NAACP held a press conference highlighting police statistics and demanding more from us. They are absolutely right. We are statewide, regional, national leaders here with our police department. We have phenomenal staff, and we're still not yet where we need to be. Our goal is simply to be the best, the most community-oriented, most effective, most respected, and most trusted public safety department in the entire state. This will be hard work. It's going to require difficult, direct conversations and speaking truth of pain and hope from all sides. It will take us years to build and earn the trust that is required, and it will be worth it. As a starting point, I've directed our police department to engage with our community in a top-to-bottom racial bias audit to identify problems and areas we need to address in our approach to policing. Secondly, we just added a 3rd deputy chief whose sole focus will be on advancing the department to be more effective and responsive to the community, especially with our communities of color. And finally, this vision for policing includes taking on a multi-year CALEA accreditation process. CALEA stands for the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agency, and it is the platinum standard for best police practice rooted in community trust. Outside auditors come in and examine every part of the department to determine where improvements can be made. And our goal here is for Duluth to be the first city in the state to earn this accreditation. My second story is about a trail, Wabashe Shikana, or the Martin Trail. Formerly known as the Western Waterfront Trail, this trail will follow the St. Louis River from the Irving neighborhood to Fond du Lac. Along the path, interpretive placards, story poles, artwork, pause points, and overlooks will share the stories of the diverse people of this region and the lessons the river can teach us all. This trail embodies the type of equitable development and storytelling narrative that will become our standard, a model for other city projects combining recreation, community building, economic development, and an honest telling of history. The second principle guiding our recovery will be sustainability. In my first State of the City address, I spoke of Duluth as a green city on a Great Lake with clear streams, fresh air, parks and trails accessible to everyone, powered by clean, renewable energy. My goal remains making Duluth the greenest city in this country. And we're building the scaffolding to get there. 4 years ago, we pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet the climate crisis. 3 years ago, we created the Energy Plan Commission to guide our energy reduction efforts. We pledged to convert our coal-powered steam plant to reduce pollution and reduce waste. 2 years ago, we announced an Office of Sustainability, and last year we hired the city's first sustainability officer, Mindy Granley. This year, a city sustainability action team began to set standards and drive sustainability efforts across city departments, and we're seeing results. Nearly 20% reduction of city emissions since 2017 across all sectors but transportation. Duluth's steam plant is burning less coal than ever, and we are committed to eliminating it altogether. Converting the plant from steam to closed-loop hot water has already reduced energy waste by half, saved 20 million gallons of water, and a 25% reduction in consumer energy consumption. Sustainability is essential for our health, but it just makes good economic sense as well. So moving forward, sustainability will be a measure for all of our decisions. There's no shortage of good ideas to pursue, so let me just quickly highlight a few. We can and must produce more local renewable energy. We will pursue and support smaller projects like the new Eco3 community-owned solar garden in Lincoln Park, and larger projects like the Riley Road solar array. That's a partnership with Minnesota Power, which promises electricity for 200 homes. But it is time to scale up our ambition. We have large blocks of city land, old industrial sites, brownfields, and other locations. We need to do what we can, where we can, every time we can to find sites suitable for expanding Duluth's renewable energy production. My goal, and I am confident we will achieve it, is for Duluth to have a large-scale solar array in the next 3 years. But this is a citywide effort, too. As city government, we can only do so much. We make up about 4% of the overall problem we face. So I am calling on the community to activate and join us. There are already efforts underway like the business-led Keep Duluth Clean and the resident-led Citizens Climate Action Plan. I'm asking our sustainability officer, Mindy Granley, to pull together a new citywide Sustainable Duluth task force comprised of businesses, unions, citizen groups, energy companies, along with the county and schools. And their task will be big. Will be to take a comprehensive look at the sustainability challenges facing our community and then map out actions that we can work on together to make a sustainable and economically vibrant Duluth. The last foundation of moving forward is based on community. Building a caring and connected community will be the third guiding principle of our recovery as a community. Let's start with affordable housing. Having a safe place to call home is a basic human right. And yet too many people in Duluth have no home or are precariously relying on friends and family. And too many worry they'll never realize their dream of having a home of their own. The pandemic has only made the problem worse. 3 years ago, we made affordable housing a top city priority. 2 years ago, we dedicated and created a housing team in our planning department and launched Rebuild Duluth. And our persistent efforts and our focus are starting to pay off. Last year, Duluth saw 600 new housing units completed or under construction. 129 of them are affordable. 150 of them are mixed housing in downtown. Rebuild Duluth has approved 14 infill sites for up to 32 new affordable housing units. Redeveloping blighted downtown areas continues to be a top priority. And with changed work patterns, it's very likely many people will continue working from home, creating excess downtown office space. So the Greater Downtown Council, together with the city, just launched a survey of downtown businesses, property owners, to understand when people are coming back, how they are coming back. And we will continue to work closely with them through this transition and be ready to repurpose. We're making progress, but we have a long way to go. And to be honest, there is just more we can do. 2 years ago, we convened the Mayor's Housing Task Force. And last year, they recommended creating a dedicated fund targeting affordable housing. And tonight, I am announcing the city will commit $2 million to create the Duluth Housing Trust Fund to support and create affordable housing. It will help rehab or renovate dilapidated units to make them livable, develop infill sites, and support accessory dwellings on existing properties, what's sometimes called the parents-in-law apartment. $2 million, it's a pretty good start, but it will not be enough. So we've already been working with LISC and local foundations, HRA, the state, and other partners to grow this fund. Our initial goal will be $4 million, and we intend to grow that even bigger. Affordable housing removes a critical barrier to an equitable and thriving community. But the past year actually laid bare two really other barriers that we've noticed. The ability to easily connect to the internet and the ability to easily connect to city resources. So first, let's talk about the internet. Reliable, high-speed internet is no longer a luxury. It is an essential utility, no less important to our future success than our roads, our water pipes, electricity, and we depend on internet access to find very basic information, to order prescription drugs, sign up for a vaccine, or receive official emergency alerts. This past year, we needed the internet to work from home, to go to school, and yet a lot of you, a lot of us, have limited, reliable, and affordable service. Right now, Spectrum is the only broadband provider in Duluth. They know it, and your bills show it. Spectrum even raised prices in a pandemic, and this community, held hostage, had no choice but to pay or go without access. This is unacceptable. Personally, I feel it's immoral. So tonight I'm calling on Spectrum to work with us to provide equitable access, to lower costs, to improve reliability. But we also need more competition in this market. That's why our planning and economic development team has taken on citywide broadband as a top priority of my term and have built an internal team to advance broadband for all. And that's still not enough. The city needs to act now. So I'm proposing $1 million of Duluth's stimulus package go to incentivize new service providers to enter this market. We will continue to push and to pull at every single angle so that we as a city can ensure all Duluthians have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. COVID also made clear the urgent need for accessible and responsive government. Our staff went above and beyond the call to keep residents informed and connect resources with those who needed them. But navigating the system is also bewildering to many people, and we need to do better. We can do better. I've asked Chief Administrative Officer Noah Schuckman to lead a city effort to create a 311 division. 311 is a one-call contact for all non-emergency city information and service requests. Have a complaint to make? Call 311. If you see a streetlight out in the neighborhood, call 311. If you don't know whether you need a building permit for that shed, call 311. If you want to pass on a thank you for a considerate snowplow driver, you've got it. You call 311. We intend to roll this out in 2 phases. Phase 1, we've actually already started. We're developing a phone app where you submit complaints that will go automatically to the appropriate staff person, saving time and frustration and creating a direct connection. We want to launch Phase 2 next year with an actual live 311 call line. Our goal is to make interacting with the city and city services as seamless and accessible for you as possible. So, those are a few goals on our path to a resilient and equitable recovery. Last month, we learned we will receive $60.5 million from the America Rescue Plan. And over the coming year, you'll hear plenty about this. We will prioritize how we will use this money. We will discuss it publicly, and we will support the goals and the core principles of equity, sustainability, and community. These will guide our path. None of this will be easy. Last year tested us. I hope we will never go through anything like it again. But I'm also confident as we emerge from this dark year, there is a brighter path forward. So I want to end with one more story. It starts with soil collected from the Duluth lynching site and Brian Stevenson. You may know Mr. Stevenson from his book or the movie, Just Mercy. But in either case, Mr. Stevenson and his Equal Justice Institute used that soil to create a sculpture etched with the names of those murdered by white supremacy: Elias Clayton, Elmer Jackson, Isaac McGee. The sculpture now hangs in the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. In January, a group of us from Minnesota contacted Mr. Stevenson to gauge interest in gifting us, Minnesota, a copy of the memorial sculpture. On the call, various representatives from around Minnesota described how the sculpture would be displayed and used for education and remembrance. Mr. Stevenson listened. I was the last speaker on the call, and I paused before saying, I know what you're asking, even though you haven't said it. The sculpture isn't so much a gift as a responsibility to heal, to change. You see, change isn't promising this tragedy will never happen again. It is about doing the work to make it impossible to repeat. You can't skip over the mud and still get a lotus. I ended my conversation by telling him, Mr. Stevenson, we are ready. We're ready for this work. We've lost a lot this last year. We've grieved, we're still grieving, but we're also strong. We've hurt, and it's our responsibility to reach toward one another and become better. No mud, no lotus. And it's our next task to do the work needed to ensure that our recovery is better than what came before. We can create a better normal, a fairer normal, a more just normal, more equitable, more sustainable, more connected than ever before. As you're about to see in the video that will follow this speech, we strive to be a new normal where every person, every single person in this community is counted, is valuable. Every member of this community has a light to shine, and it is our job to help it shine bright. So for this work, we are ready. Thank you.
Esta lucecita mía, la dejaré brillar, dejar brillar.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Solo el cielo sabe los lugares a los que iré, la distancia a la que iré, dejarla brillar.
Let it shine.
This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Heaven only knows, heaven only knows the places I will go.
Let it shine, let it shine.
You gotta be earth sometimes. You should speak up sometimes. Use your voice sometimes. Let it go.
Tienes que ser honesto una vez, tienes que hablar una vez, usar tu voz una vez, déjala contar.
I just can't let nothing take hold of me. I just can't let nothing control me. I just can't let nothing take my feelings away. I just can't let nothing take hold of me. I just can't let nothing control me. I just can't let nothing take my feelings away.
Tienes que ser honesto una vez, deberías hablar una vez, usar tu voz hazla
Let it
contar.
count. You gotta be hurt sometimes. You should speak up sometimes.
Sometimes let it count.
Make sure we count. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.